Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival produced by Visual Communications. My name is Udval Altangarel, part of this year's programming team, and I am currently zooming in from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. I think I would like to start with short introductions of our panelists before we get into the discussion. And for the filmmakers, if y'all could tell us where you're currently calling in from and give us a brief synopsis of your films after I read your bios, that'd be great. Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Hey, all right, I'll start with you, Devon. Devon Zena Norman is a Kuala Lumpur-born, LA-based artist, filmmaker, and writer. His work has been featured at LAAPFF, Sundance, South by Southwest, and the National Art Gallery of Malaysia. Benevolent Ba is his second short to compete for the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival 2020. More recently, his script, Sitora the Were-Tiger, was a recipient of the FINA's Feature Film Development Grant.
Hi, I'm Defan. That's me. I forget what I'm supposed to answer, Udwal. I'm so sorry.
Where are you calling in from? And
Oh, I'm calling in
give
from
us
North.
a synopsis?
Yes, yes. You know what I was actually doing? I was actually looking for my synopsis, not to mess it up. But I am calling in from North Hollywood, and my film is about a lady who kind of takes her family through this arduous process of slaughtering a goat. Things don't go right. They go very bad.
Our second panelist is Cecilia Armegia. Cecilia has worked in development for nonprofit organizations. She's worked with several grassroots organizations focusing on underrepresented communities, which led to her working in film. Cecilia has produced a number of short films focusing on critical social impact issues. She's the lead producer of Sony-acquired feature film Yellow Rose, a social impact producer of the award-winning film Call Her Ganda, and co-producer for Lingua Franca. She's also the creative director of Art of Me and adjunct professor at NYU.
Hi, I'm Cecilia, calling in from Brooklyn. I wish Mary, the director, was on, and our writer, Lexington Rivera. Our film is called Blood Hana. It actually stems from a short story that was written by Lexington, who was a high school student that I worked with through my program, Art of Me. We do a writing competition where we select a story to turn into a film every year, and hers was the one that won. Her story actually follows a young Japanese American girl who is questioning her faith and her sexuality when she finds herself falling in love with her classmate. And the more that she falls for her classmate, she finds herself getting sicker and sicker, and she winds up throwing up a bloody flower, which is why it's called Blood Hana. So she finds out that she has this disease called Hanahaki, which stems from unrequited love.
Thank you, Cecilia. Next is Kevin. Kevin Xiangming Yu is a filmmaker from Queens, New York, and a recent graduate of NYU Tisch. He's committed to telling the stories of underrepresented communities, specifically representing the Asian American communities and diaspora in New York. Kevin has also worked as a cinematographer on over 15 short films and one feature film, Verde, which was shot in the Dajabon province of Dominican Republic.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Kevin, and I'm calling in from Queens, and I'm writer director of the film Close to You, which is a film about a young Asian American person who's struggling to balance their exploration of gender identity with the expectations of their immigrant mother.
Thank you, Kevin. Next is Siu. Siu Tan is a Singaporean filmmaker based in Los Angeles. Hello Amma, completed through the directing workshop for Women at AFI, was in competition at Toronto International Film Festival and the Berlinale. Most recently, she has been selected as a fellow at the Busan International Film Festival's Asian Film Academy and the Universal Directors Initiative. She is developing her first feature, Amoeba, awarded the most promising project at the Southeast Asian Film Lab.
Hello everyone, I'm Siu. I'm calling from LA, and my film Hello Amma is about an 8-year-old girl who is new to America, who finds her grandmother's reincarnation in a turtle. Thank you.
Thank you, Siu. Next is Tina Takamoto. Tina's experimental films explore queer Asian American identity and history. Takamoto was awarded Grand Jury Prize for Best Experimental Film at Slamdance and Best Experimental Film Jury Award at LAAPFF. Screenings include Ann Arbor, Anthology Film Archive, BFI Flair, CamFest, AppFest, Queer Forever, and Exposed Queer Film Festival.
Hi there, I'm Tina, or TT, and I'm calling in from the San Francisco Bay Area. My film is called May 35, and it's a commemoration of the Tiananmen Square uprising of June 4th, 1989. And it's made without a camera from a single image that I transferred onto a 16 millimeter clear film leader with razor blades and Scotch tape.
Thank you. So next is Sean. Sean Wang is a filmmaker from the Bay Area, currently living in New York City. He's a graduate of the USC School of Cinematic Arts and a Google Creative LAAPFF alum. Recently, Sean directed sequences for the feature film Summertime, which premiered in the next category at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival, and his short film 3,000 Miles was named one of Vimeo's 100 most iconic staff picks of the decade.
Hi everyone, I'm Sean. I'm calling in from the Bay Area in Fremont, California. And my film is called Still Here, and it's a short documentary about a few residents who refuse to leave their now abandoned village in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. And it was shot in the village where my grandmother lived. I'm laughing because like she walked in and she's like right behind this thing, like making noise. So it's maybe kind of fitting. But it was shot in the village where she lived, where my mother grew up, and where I spent a majority of my childhood summers. Yeah.
So for our first question, both Sean and Cecilia kind of talked about this, but I was wondering if the rest of y'all could talk about the inspiration for each of your films. Do you want to start, Kevin?
Sure. Yeah. So Close to You, I think it's based a lot around my own exploration of gender, but also I think I was like really drawn to the idea of all that's unspoken in an Asian American household and the silence that is present in a lot of Asian American households, and also the pain of the fact and realization that maybe your family and those that are close to you might not understand who you are or have the language or capacity to understand who you are, and either making peace with that or trying to communicate in some other way and overcome that silence or that unspoken nature.
I think what you said about silence and the things that are left unsaid, I think that kind of ties into Halawa, Siu's film.
Yeah, I used a lot of that too. So the inspiration for Halawa came because 7 years ago when I first moved to LA, my grandmother passed away in Singapore, and because I was on the OPT, which is like the post-university visa, I couldn't leave the country, and so I missed her final send-off. And that made me feel very guilty because my grandmother was kind of like my mother. She was the one who like brought me up and cooked me nice soup to nourish my bones and stuff. And she was very important to me. And ever since I came to the States, I saw her like once a year or once every 2 years. And every time I saw her, she was like more and more fragile. And so just missing her final send-off and her funeral was very devastating to me. And also I was new to LA, and I was like grieving alone in like a foreign country, trying to grapple with the whole immigration bureaucracy and that whole thing. So that all that stuff kind of built inside me for a good number of years. And I think the whole experience made me feel, just a combination of my grandmother's death and the immigration stuff made me feel very helpless. And so that's why I kind of channeled it all into a young girl.
Thank you to you. Stefan?
By the way, all your films sound so amazing. I can't wait to watch them. Benevolent Ba was inspired by, actually it was really just an inversion of the story of Abraham and Isaac. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's God commands Abraham to prove his conviction to God by ordering him to slaughter his son in a dream. And the biblical story is that right as Abraham's about to slaughter his son, an angel comes down and hands him a goat and says, "Hey, gotcha, you can slaughter this goat, and not your son." So I took that story and sort of inverted it in that we start with the slaughter of a goat and we end up somewhere else at the moment of the slaughter. Mix that in with a bit of, I'm a huge fan of Michael Jackson. The HBO documentary was tragic. Yeah, I can't deny the artistry that his artistry that has inspired my work. And if anything, it's a real regurgitation of all those things combined. My own religion, my own identity, popular culture, all that stuff, just kind of put it in a blender, and you get Benevolent Ba.
Thank you, Devon. TT?
So I started working on May 35 for an exhibition in San Francisco at the Chinese Culture Center. The exhibition was called Task of Remembrance, and the curators asked me if I would take on the topic of remembering Tiananmen Square in some way. And so I started thinking about what it means to remember an event in which imagery that circulates online is not available everywhere, that it's censored in some contexts. And so I took a single image that was taken on June 2nd, so 2 days before the violence really began. And I wanted to spend time with that photograph. So it's quite a popular, well-known photo in some parts of the world. And I wanted to think about what it means to look at a photo through the lens of the violence that occurred afterwards. So when I see this image, I look at the faces of folks and think or wonder, is this a person who suffered physical violence? Obviously, they suffered a lot of psychological trauma. So I was coming up with a experimental project that would enable me to spend time with the image, and that the process itself would also translate kind of the violence and the difficulty of remembering.
Thank you, TT. I think there's definitely a tie around the theme of archive and use of the photographic evidence in your film and another film that's part of this program called The Filial Daughter. And I think also Sean's film. I think a lot of your work uses these family photographs and the personal archive, correct? Can you talk a little bit about that? The use of the personal archive in your films, why it's important?
Yeah, I guess for Still Here specifically, it was kind of, my grandma was kind of the gateway into that film. The people that we interviewed and the people that we were able to kind of sit down with and make the documentary about, we found them and we were able to kind of get access to them because they were residents of the village that my grandmother kind of grew up in. And so me and my collaborators kind of went to Taiwan without really knowing if we could even have access to the people who were still in this village. And in our head, we were sort of like, okay, like if we can get access, fine, and great, like we'll take what we can get. Like if they don't want to talk to us, like that's fine. But if they're open to kind of letting us kind of see what their lives are like, that's also fine. But I knew that like at the end of the day, there's maybe like a 2 to 3 minute piece about just my grandma. And so just from like a process standpoint, I kind of knew like, oh, like the way into this story and to get people kind of interested, maybe I should just use kind of my own personal lens, or just like, hey, I'm revisiting like through my grandma, the house that like she spent so much time in, and the memories that kind of like come with kind of going back to a place that you've spent, you know, the majority of your life, and what it kind of feels like and does to you when you see it in shambles. And so that was kind of our starting point. And so I knew that that was going to be it's a small part of the overall documentary, but just because that was the only thing that we really had to work with for a while, I was like, I'm just going to try and find all the archival stuff that I can. And even though it became kind of a small part of the story, it was nice that we were able to integrate a little bit of it to hopefully capture some of that personal element.
You briefly talked about your collaborators that you worked with in Taiwan, and I was wondering if this is for the entire panel, if y'all could talk about the different collaborations that made this film possible. Maybe we could start with Cecilia.
Sure. Because this was like a student project, it took a village. There's animation in the project, so we actually had an illustrator and an animator, so that was a collaboration, and everybody was remote. But this is all pre-COVID too, so this was kind of interesting to do this remotely. And then, just to have her teachers were also involved in the making of the film, her classmates. So it was interesting to see all of us filmmakers combined with all of these educators and other people to tell this girl's story, but always with the goal of her story in mind. And I think it really shows because the basis of her film actually stems from a curriculum that we wrote called Power and Community. So it's really about the community of people that came together to bring her film to life. And everyone's just really excited for her. Just like, she's like, even though, she's like the student writer, this is really her film.
See you.
So the film was part of the AFI Directing Workshop for Women. And I think in that environment, it's pretty collaborative and emphasized. Like, we all workshop the scripts together, and we had like program directors that sort of met with us and stuff. And my closest collaborators, I think, going into production were my, your team. And it's the first time I have worked with a team that's larger than just like me and a DP and like a sound person. So it was really like a learning journey for me also to sort of trust the people you work with and just like find the people you want to spend a lot of time with, and that you can feed off each other's energies. And trust them, and everyone just kind of like be united in this like film. You kind of like the train, just get everybody on the train and let the train trust that the train will keep going. And also, I also had a very close connection with the lead, the little girl, and I would consider that like a collaboration too. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Siu. Kevin?
Yeah, I was going off of what Siu was saying. I feel like a big part of this film were the actors that were a part of it, and I cast my mother in the film to play the role of the mom, and I cast an actor named Teddy, who's a trans Chinese person, in the lead role. And I think, like, initially casting my mom was kind of just a necessity of not being able to find a middle-aged Chinese person that could speak Mandarin well and who understood what we were dealing with here. But I think it became like a way for me to communicate with my mom about something that is incredibly difficult to communicate in person or in any way, even still now after making the film. And I think it was really important that Teddy and my mom both had these conversations around not only the characters' motivations, but also just their personal perspectives upon gender identity and upon living as somebody who is a trans Asian American person here in Queens. And I think I realize that like my mom doesn't have the language to express a lot of how she's feeling, and she operates from a position of fear and from a position of wanting to stay like to not make any noise, to not like make any show of yourself in some way. And I think a lot of the conversations that Teddy and I had with her made her see that this is not about trying to hide who you are, but it's just about trying to be safe in who you are, I guess. And it was just a way for us to communicate outside of the real world, I guess.
Thank you, Kevin. TT?
My film was made just in my apartment, I mean my room, because I'm working directly on 16 millimeter film, so there weren't really a lot of collaborative aspects. Although I would say I did collaborate with the sound designer, Cadet Kuhn, um, who who used a lot of found sound, and I had also recorded sounds of cicadas, and I was thinking about what it would sound like in the summer, um, in June, and so we worked together on the sound design.
Thank you, Titi. On the topic of soundtracks, Devon, do you want to talk
Talk
about
about the
your
soundtrack.
collaborations and the sound, but also maybe the collaborations?
So the music, the score in Benevolent Ba was written by a friend I actually met at Sundance. His name is Lucas Lachowski. We were going for something classic, something of an old horror film, just to, give it a tinge of a fairy tale. And I've always been a fan of percussive stuff, but some of that stuff can easily be overdone. So it was tough work to hold back on going even further into that percussive space. But I think the outcome, for me at least, it was very satisfying to be working with someone like Lucas. I mean, his studio is right next to a pool here in the valley, and it was one of my most favorite creative discussions that I've ever had with someone, because it was so accommodating. He would pull out a violin. He would say, okay, let me just touch the keys right here, and he would just riff on a note, and everything he did was amazing, and yeah, pleasure to work with.
Thank you, Devon. I wanted to ask Kevin if you shot your film on 16, because I definitely had that feeling.
I did not shoot my film in 16.
You did not. Okay.
I wish I had, and I there was once a plan to, but I had talked to the DP, and I really trusted her vision, her ability to create images, and we made it digitally, and I think it was just purely financial consideration, and also I think, I don't know if at the time as a director I was prepared to handle a shoot with the little amount of time we had, and also on film. I think there's pressure in that as well.
Yeah. It definitely had that filmic feel. That's why I was asking. I think all the films in this program have striking cinematography, and I was wondering if y'all could talk about your collaborations with your cinematographers, maybe briefly. Sean, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So the cinematographer for my short, Still Here, was a super talented guy from New York. His name's Zach Stoltzfus. And but the process for us was kind of like, we knew this couldn't be super stylized, just because, again, like, we didn't have access to our subjects like super well in advance. It was kind of like, hey, like, if you're open to sharing like your stories with us and letting us inside your home, we'll work with the boundaries that you present us. And luckily they were kind of like super open and like very supportive of like what we were trying to do. But even just down to like the collaboration with my DP, it was kind of like, even in pre-production, I was like, I don't know how to make this thing. Like, I have no money. Like, I was like, am I going to hire like a DP in Taiwan to like go with me to this? Like, I don't know. I was like, do I bring my friend, and where do we rent equipment? Like, I just had never shot anything in Taiwan. And so I was like, I don't know how to make this thing. Like, are we going to shoot on like an Alexa package? Like, I really wanted to do it right. And then I think at a certain point I was like, this can't be like a production, because I don't know what the production is yet. And so I basically just convinced like my Zach, who's a friend of mine as well. I was like, hey, I kind of want to make this doc. I don't know if we can make it. I don't know if there's anything to make. But like, if you're down to like come with me to Taiwan for 10 days and like bring your camera and like make something with me, maybe like we should swing for it if you're down. I have no money, but I'll like pay you for your flight to Taiwan. and he was like, yeah, I'm down. And so we, as far as like style, it was kind of like figured out on the fly with like a few stylistic shots kind of interspersed.
Thank you, Sean. Cecilia?
Our cinematographer, Ine Gowland, she's actually, she's also a director. She's really tiny. She's like probably less than 5 feet or 5 feet. And she had, she had the Alexa, but it wasn't the Mini, and it was probably bigger than her. And so it was, you know, it was a challenge to when we're scouting to think about, because a lot of the places are big. Well, some of the places like the church in the film is huge, so it's, you know, and then having the priest high up was trying to maneuver all that, because we were kind of limited in funding also, and we didn't want to just put her on a ladder. So there's a lot of like figuring out creatively how we would how she would get those shots, and you know, Inez really, and Mary actually, the director, they're really all about natural light. So none of that came through pretty well, but it was also they both really resonated with the story. So the way that they put it together as a team, Mary and Ine, was really you know, it was just their vision along with like translating Lexington's story into this poem. It felt like a poem to me with the way that they had translated it. And it was also interesting in how we would weave in the animation to make it seamless. So it just didn't seem like it was like a one-off. So that was also part of Ine's job, to really take a look at the animation along with Mary and the rest of us to see how that fit in stylistically with the scenes. But I think she did a great job. You can't tell how mini she is. She's pretty powerful force. So
Thank you, Cecilia. See you.
My collaboration with my DP, Arlene Muller, is like one of the closest and most fruitful kind of relationships I started to build. She was recommended to me by a friend. It's like AFI cinematographer network kind of thing, and she graduated a couple of years and she's done like a couple of features. So I was like, there's no way she's gonna want to do this like short film that she's not gonna get paid for. But you know, I just decided to reach out anyway, and then we met at a bar, and it was like instant connection, I think. And so over the course of a couple of months, she really liked the script. She was brought up by her grandparents too, and so she wanted to do it. And over the course of a few months, we ate a lot of Thai food and like exchanged a lot of movies, and that's kind of how we like hashed out. And also I have a lot of visual references, and kind of we just go back and forth. And because she's more experienced, I would just kind of show her an image, like I really like this image, I don't understand. Then she would kind of break it down like, okay, this lens, that lens, this is how it's achieved and everything. So she was really kind of guiding me through the whole thing, and I think it was really nice.
Thank you, see you. Devon?
On 2 occasions I've worked with Saifuddin Musa. He goes by Udin. He is actually helping me develop my feature right now. What we did on Benevolent Bother was slightly different in that I think I only had like a month in Malaysia, so it was so short to figure out exactly what we needed to shoot. So luckily enough, I do use Maya, so we were able to build a really dorky, rough, previs, and we sat down together for 3 to 4 straight days and plotted out every single shot, which, you know, some of the shots which we did plot out didn't really work out on set, but sitting for 4 days together, just plotting out compositions really gave us enough of a trust between one another to, like, if we were to deviate from our original plan, it felt like a safe choice. Yeah. Awesome guy to work with.
Thank you, Devon. TT, I know you work a lot with small gauge films, and I just was wondering why 16, why Super 8? What's your interest in celluloid?
Let's see. I think my true love of working on 16 millimeter was inspired partly or solidified by the summer I spent in Little Tokyo and with the residents at Visual Communications, and then I also worked with the Echo Park Film Center. And I'm really interested in 16 millimeter as a material that is often discarded. You know, you can find reels in thrift stores and salvage yards, and you can bleach it, and then it's clear, and then you can do stuff on it. And then also you can still find projectors. So I found a projector through goodwill.com for under $50, and they shipped it to me, and it happened to work, so I could actually see the work. But I'm also really interested in chance operations. So in other words, like, what does it mean to work on a reel of film, but not know what it's actually going to look like? So I had worked on another film for 3 months. I made hundreds and hundreds of feet of film, but really like a 1/4 inch at a time, because I was lifting emulsion off of 35 millimeter reels and then sticking it onto 16 and 8 millimeter with nail polish. But I didn't have a projector, and I didn't even have a viewer. So I was just sort of guessing. And it wasn't until I got the stuff digitized that I could actually see what the imagery is. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the process, and also just the physicality of spending time with your hands on the film.
Thank you. Do y'all have questions for each other? I don't know if everyone had time to watch each other's films before today's discussion.
I watch everyone's films, and I just want to say to Fan, where's your film? It sounds very interesting, but it's not in the link.
Oh, where is my film? On the shared list?
In the email that was sent. I mean, also like Malaysia, you know, I was like, ooh, Malaysia.
Yeah, you know, I'll find it. I'll find out. I'll get back to you, see.
Yes, send it over.
Yeah, where can people find your other work? Where can they see your work? It's for everyone.
My work or CU's work?
Everyone's work.
Oh, everyone's work. You can check out our website, rankapictures.com. That's RANGKA pictures.com. You can check out that film, Kakase, online.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm also, so I haven't been able to watch all of your films yet, but especially after this Q&A, I'm gonna go like do a marathon shorts right now. My films and this film also exist on the internet in their entirety on the Vimeos and the other places that host shorts.
Cecilia?
Sure. Yeah, I haven't gotten to see everybody's film, but I will. You could, or this film isn't showing anywhere yet. This is actually the first time it will show. But our other Art of Me films are on www.artofme.org. We have about 3 in this Art of Me library, but 26 altogether, similar short films that we've done. But other personal work, well, you should check out Mary's films. Mary's played at Sundance before, maryevangelista.com. You'll see she's had really, really great shorts. She's working on her first feature called Fran this summer. Actually, no, yeah, it's called Fran this summer, or Burning Well, I think she changed it. But my other personal work, Wheel of Rose, which actually premiered at LAAPFF last year, is going to be in theaters. I'm not going to force anyone to go to theaters, but it'll be in theaters October 9th. So if you feel safe enough to go, it'll show in theaters on October 9th.
And Mary's other film is playing in another shorts program as part of our festival.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Kevin?
A lot of my short films aren't online yet, but you can see some of my cinematography work and some other shorts on my website, which is just kevinshamingyou.com. But yeah, you can see my film here. You can see it at LAAPFF, which I'm excited, and I'm excited to watch everybody else's films. I've seen some of them, but I haven't got a chance to watch them all.
Thank you, Kevin. See you.
My shorts, I guess, are not really available because I'm very embarrassed. But I have a website. It's just my last name, first name, tansiu.com. But I mean, I guess watching everyone's films with the links that was sent, I think it was like just so nice to see a lot of the spectrum of like Asian faces and like the Asian experience that is not, sometimes you just go and watch something and it's like, oh, okay, it's like the Asian person. But this one is like you really get a whole spectrum of, just like the whole, it's not just like Asian American, it's also like Asians from not, it was great. Yeah, just saying that. Thank you for this program.
Thank you. Titi?
So I have some stuff on a website. It's takamoto.com. And then I have some stuff. I have a distributor in Canada, which is CFMDC. And they distribute to educational places and festivals. And they have clips on there. So you can look me up by my name.
Thank you. What is in store for y'all? What's next for you? What are you all currently working on? And how have your plans have changed because of the pandemic? Cecilia, do you want to start?
Sure. I feel like everyone's gonna have the same kind of. We were set to shoot our another Art of Me film in the spring. Actually, I was going to direct this one. So we're kind of pushing it back. So we're revamping it a little, and then another one will actually be, because of COVID, will probably turn into sort of a puppetry type film, which is kind of inspired by Jordan Peele's work. So we're experimenting with that. So that's going to be a fun thing to do. But I actually have, while COVID, worked on a documentary short series with PJ Raval, the director of Call Her Gunda. And actually it'll screen, we'll do a preview of it at CamFest next month. So that's what's coming up for me. So it's interesting to do everything via Zoom. Hopefully it translates well.
Thank you. Define?
I am developing my first feature called Sitora. It's inspired by a lost Piranli film that has resurfaced as a novel. I think about 5 years ago. So I'll be working on that. I just finished the latest draft of the script, and we'll see how it goes.
Sean?
I've been in post on a couple shorts that have sort of been put on the back burner for, client work and stuff time and time again. So when the pandemic hit, it was a good time to kind of just get back in post land and try and finish those up. And then also working on developing what I hope to be my first feature. And we'll also see how that goes. Not easy.
Feel you, Sean.
Titi?
Let's see. So my other work is usually about queer Japanese American or Asian American history, but I, tend to take a super experimental approach and use mashup music video style things, or just textural, sensorial environments. I'm just starting a piece that's about Margaret Chung, who's the first Chinese American female surgeon who opened a hospital in Chinatown in San Francisco. And she was rumored to be a lesbian, although she was quite closeted about that. But she also dressed as a man when she went to medical school, and she had lesbian poets write poetry about her. And there's a tunnel bore, one of those big devices that literally makes a tunnel underground, named after her in Chinatown. So the Margaret Chung tunnel bore. So anyways, so I'm thinking about her a lot and her contradictions of being this incredible person who's also kind of closeted, but also not closeted.
Will you be going back to your performance roots for this project?
It's possible. I'm thinking it has the words like butch bedside manner in there somehow. And Anna May Wang was actually friends with her and was in a film called King of Chinatown, where Anna May Wang plays a character based on Margaret Chung. And Anna May Wang was probably queerish in some way. So I think there's a lot of potential for appropriation, but also maybe some performance as well.
Thank you, TT. Kevin?
Yeah, a lot of like the cinematography work that I've been doing has been put to the side, and I've been just like endlessly like working with directors that possibly will shoot something soon. But I've been developing and working on a feature film version of Close to You, actually, and trying to explore a little bit more about just the masculine identity that's persistent in a lot of Asian American communities and how that works against queer identity in these communities as well, and just like trying to reflect a little bit about how I grew up within these Asian American communities in Queens and show the lives of the people that I grew up around and just this community.
Thank you, Kevin. See you.
I wish I was working on something as interesting as Margaret Chung, but I'm working on my first feature, just like Stefan and Kevin and Sean and everyone. It is in development now at a Southeast Asian lab in Thailand, which is actually happening right now. So if the pandemic wasn't happening, I would be in Chiang Mai, which would be very nice, but instead I'm looking at people over the computer. But it's been really great. Just we get a lot of mentorship and script consultants and stuff. And so yeah, writing is a bitch and we just have to keep going with it.
Thank you.
Can I take a photo of everyone together to cherish this memory forever? Are you guys ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, thank you. I think we only have 3 minutes left, so I think I'm gonna close it off. Thank you all for joining this conversation. Thank you, Ryan, for all your technical help. If you enjoyed the conversation, please check out the shorts program, Dead to Me, and the rest of our festival lineup at festival.vcmedia.org or follow us on social media at VC Film Festival. And please consider making a donation to Visual Communications. Your support will help sustain our year-round operation. Go to vcmedia.org for more info. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you so
everyone.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.